Hey, what is up YouTube? This is Powerhouse here with another one of my videos, and today we are going to talk about Tenchu, the series, and we're going to do a tier list for that. But before I continue, it's hot as hell outside, it's hot as hell in here. I ain't popping any mollies, but I'm sweating, so let's get through this. And just to begin and give a bit overview for what Tenchu is Tenchu is a series of stealth games where you get to play as a ninja or shinobi, basically play as a Rikimaru or Ayami in most of them. And you would go through various missions. Most of the time, you have to be very sneaky, stealthy. Most of the time you'd have to, the level will end with the boss battle, and I'll get into more of that when I discuss each games. But there were plenty of games that were released, starting from the PlayStation 1 with Tenchu Stealth Assassins, and I believe the last one was Tenchu Shadow Assassins, and that one came out for the Wii. So it's been a generation, and it's been a while since we had a last Tenchu game. I would say about 10 years, give or take. And I really wish that they can return the series, but I know there's a lot of issues right now with licensing, who has the rights. I think From Software does, because Sekiro was originally supposed to be a Tenchu game, a Tenchu sequel, but there was something with the rights, or at least there's a bit of complication there. So at this point, who knows if another Tenchu game can even be made, but that's a side issue. But I decided to make this a little fun. So what I did is, instead of the regular S, A, B, C, D rank, I decided to change it. So basically, reflecting of the missions. If you did really bad in the missions, you'd get Thug. If you did okay, you'd get Novice, Ninja, Master Ninja, and Grandmaster, which is what you would aim for. So I decided to rename it to that. And as much as I enjoyed the series, there are a few games that I haven't played. Listed here: Tenchu / Dark Secret for the DS, which I heard wasn't that good. This one, I don't know what it is. Shadow Assassins, I heard was okay, and Time of the Assassins, I've heard nothing good about. And of course, we are going to begin with the first game, Tenchu Stealth Assassins. So usually for tier lists, what I do is I kind of go off of memory and what I remember. But for this one, I decided to play all the Tenchu games again, just to kind of get a feel for it. And as much as I enjoyed the Tenchu from back in the day, I'm just gonna say it, the first two games have just not aged well. A lot of games from the PlayStations just haven't aged well, mainly due to the tank controls and moving around. What really kills this one, though, is the draw distance. It's nearly impossible to really get adjusted to how short everything is. All the missions take place at night to really hide the fact that the draw distance is horrible. But it gets to me when I'm on top of a tower or on top of somewhere trying to look down, and I can't look down because I'm so high up that I can't see anything. And apparently it was worse for the Japanese release, which I can't even imagine. If it was worse, woof, that would have been that must have been the real hard version. But I mean, at the time, it was very charming. The music is still legendarily amazing. The voice acting is campy as hell, and you can enjoy it in so bad it's good way. The story is non-existent. I mean, it's loosely tied, but you really have to pay attention. And honestly, it's not something that's it's not really the focus of the game. It's more just to connect the missions, or loosely connect the missions. But like I mentioned before, you get Rikimaru or Ayane. How could I forget the name? Anyways, I like Ayane better. She's the quick and nimble one, while Rikimaru's the slower and more powerful one. And both of them, offer unique playstyles with different kind of executions and stuff, which at the time, those stealth kills looked amazing. And it was gory as hell. Nowadays, it's kind of, cheesy, but back in the day, it was awesome. But I gotta be honest, man. I don't think it's aged as well as many people would wish it would have. So I'm gonna go. This is gonna be an unpopular opinion, and I know, as these tier lists tend to be for me. But I'm going to put this on the. You know what? I'll be a little generous. I'll put this in the ninja tier. just because of the music. That intro is legendarily awesome as well. And in terms of the atmosphere, it does a pretty good job. Later on it gets more mystical, and it doesn't really stick the landing too much with the missions later in the game. A problem I feel like a lot of Tenchu games have, they just can't seem to really stick that landing. Once you get to the laters, they start introducing all these mystical elements and stuff. Really gets annoying, but overall, if you can, at the time it was amazing, but it definitely is surpassed by other games in the series. And once again, unpopular opinion, but I would even say the second game surpasses it, and that's what we're going to move on to. Tenchu 2, Birth of the Stealth Assassins. I just had to read that. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but it is what it is. And the reason why it's called that is because it's a prequel to the first game, and you get to see Rikimaru and Ayami young, seeing them grow and develop in their story. So compared to the first game, this is far more narrative focused, and I actually enjoyed that more with this one. Is before each mission, and there was a lot more in terms of the narrative and cutscene. It wasn't just like, there was cutscenes in the first game, but there was also they seem to be more linked to an overall narrative in this one too, with characters and all that stuff. So I actually did like this a lot in that way. There are some issues, however. One of the weird things is it seems like a lot of the missions take place during the day, which I do love the color palette of this game. It's far more colorful and brighter than the first game, so it's far more appealing to look at in that way. They added some things with swimming. They added analog support, which helps with the tanky controls. It still feels stiff because, again, PS1 and only so much you can do, but it does help to alleviate it a little bit. Draw distance is still a problem, but not as bad as the first game. I just think people notice more the draw distance in this one because it takes place during the day, so it's like foggy. But the first one had, like I said, really bad draw distance, and it was almost impossible to see. A lot of PS1 games, like I said before, suffer from it, as well as the N64. Honestly, the early 3D generation suffers from that a lot. It's a bit slower paced, like with the game. It's kind of weird to say it, but there's more missions to do. Both Tenchu has this weird thing I mentioned before with, like, it's all about stealth and being sneaky, but most of the missions end with like a boss fight. And especially like the later games, they're a little bit better, but the early ones are horrible. Like the boss fights just feel stiff and clunky, hard to lock on, easy to get behind your opponent, and even the computer has a hard time staying locked onto you, and they'll be tanky as well. So you can kind of take advantage of that. Most of them are just not very fun. But one thing or a couple things I would say, or one thing that makes this worse too, is the music. There's not a lot of songs during the missions, which is a little weird compared to the amazing soundtrack in the first game. There is still music, but it's more ambiance. Like you'll hear birds chirping and stuff. So it's a little bit different there. But one thing that, besides like the controls and the adding to the feel of the game, is also the fact that it comes with a scenario editor. Now, I know the first game did, but it was only released in Japan, and from what I can tell, it was only released in Japan and we never got it. So, this one had a scenario editor. You get to create your own missions. And honestly, I'm surprised that for this being such a staple in, the re-release in Japan in the first, and then, being something a lot of people will say is their favorite thing in the second, I'm surprised going forward this was never included. And for that, I just find Tenchu 2 to be, like I said, much more enjoyable and playable to me. And I know it's not an unpopular opinion. I think at the time it would have been reversed, but just being retrospectively, Tenchu 2 to me is a step up. And there's also more secrets, like I said, more missions and all that to discover. And the scenario editor really just, puts it over the top for me. So if you do have to play a PlayStation 1, if you do have to play a game from the PS1 era, which I wouldn't recommend, and I'll tell you why later, I would probably tell you to put Tenchu Tenchu 2 over it. If you had to play a PS1 title. Alright, so now we're getting to the PS2 era, which I would say was both its rise and fall, and we'll get into that in a bit because, you know, Tenchu 1 started off really hot. Tenchu 2, I think, didn't do as well commercially and critically. Then to know, this game is being jumped around a lot at this point, and it's not the same. From what I understand, it's not the same developers. It's different developers for this one. There's a lot of jumping around. Like, you know, it started out with Acquire, who, you know, went on to make the Way of the Samurai series, and I think at this point it was K2 who was developing it, because I know K2 did Fatal Shadows, and Tenchu Z was From Software, and also K2. It just, there's a lot of jumping around at this point. Just, that's all I'm gonna say. But, and publishers too, because this one is published by somebody. I don't know. Anyways, let's get focused. So, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven was the first game on the PS2, and right away you just know it feels so much more better. They definitely take advantage of the new hardware. The draw distance is no longer an issue. The movement is far smoother. The cool thing about the movement is, you know, it's still a little tanky, not as bad, but, you know, you have better control of the camera, which I didn't mention, but it was an issue in the first two games. Here it's not an issue, or at least it's not as much of an issue because you can control it with the right analog stick. Movement, left analog stick, pretty smooth. Animations look pretty smooth, pretty gory. The second one went down to the gore, but this one upped it again. So you'll see like decapitations and stuff like that. It's really enjoyable. There's also a secret character you can unlock similar to the second game, and while the first few levels especially are fantastic in this game, some of the best in the series, and unfortunately the later levels go back into that mystical side, which is where Tenchu struggles a lot. I don't know why Tenchu ever felt the need to really say, oh, let's go back to demons and magic and all that stuff. From what I recall with 2, it was pretty grounded, so you didn't really see that. The first one you saw it by the end, but this one you see it like midway through, and it gets really silly. I'm just gonna say it gets really silly midway through into the ladder, which is unfortunate because the first few levels are really good. Now, what really puts it over the top for me personally is the fact that this is the only one that I can find that has local multiplayer, and it's a blast. You have one-on-one fighting and with like the boss characters that you face, and while they may not be the most enjoyable to face in the story mode because some of them can be really difficult, and the combat does feel much better, like I said, thanks to the improvements of the PS2 and the controls. Playing as them and against your friends is a lot of fun, and there's also a co-op multiplayer mode as well, where you can team up together as the different ninjas that you unlock, and you perform, you know, stealth missions, all that stuff. Depending on the mission, you know, you help each other out, and it's honestly a lot of fun and easily my best. I've had so much fun just with the multiplayer, and I would say that's, if you don't even touch the single player, if you can get at least one person to play the multiplayer with you, you guys will have a blast. And honestly, I've had a lot of laughs with this one. I've really enjoyed this game, but it's not perfect. Obviously, like I said, the latter half really isn't as fun, but it definitely does feel better. Like compared to the first two, it feels a lot better to control and a lot smoother. So this, out of all the ones I've talked about so far, has definitely aged the best. And if you ever get a Tenchu game, I would definitely recommend that you get this one. Alright, so the next is Fatal Shadows, which I think came out a couple years after this, a year or two after this, not too long after Wrath of Heaven. I've been terrible with facts today. I suck. So the thing with Fatal Shadows is it takes a bit of a different direction. Ayami returns, which is awesome. That's my favorite character, by the way. I think she's cool with the twin Karachis. But instead of Rikimaru, which is why, they have another character. Her name is Rin of the Benia, and I don't care for Rin. I think she kind of sucks. Like, all the only thing she really is like a faster Ayami, and she uses a katana, but like most of her moves are just, you know, with her elbows and unarmed, then she'll take out the katana. She never really felt good to use in combat. I really hated when I had to, you know, play some boss battles in combat. And the campaign is much different too, because in the other games you can pick your character and then just go through the missions. So if you liked Rikimaru, all you had to do was just play Rikimaru's missions if that's all you wanted to do. But here it switches every mission. So like the first mission you play as Ayame, then the second mission you go to Rin, and then it switches like every mission. And the game is incredibly short too. I was looking at, most of Tenchu's will take you like about 9 to 10 hours to complete, but this one took only, when I played it, I was like, there's only like 12 missions in the game. Incredibly short. You can get through it very fast. And then I looked at, you know, how long to beat, and most of the times came at like 4 or 5 hours. So I'm like, wow. The level design here was a little weird too, because it looks like they opened it up, but the problem is when they opened up the level design, for most of them, some are, you know, still kind of linear in terms of here are your encounters, but when they opened it up for Fatal Shadows, I realized that you can just sprint through, like without hitting any guard. You can sprint through a lot of these levels just to get to the end. And by the last mission, that's what I was doing, because I honestly was just getting frustrated with some of the issues with this game. Mainly at that time I was playing as Rin, and like I said, she's not fun to play as. She really kind of sucks. The game just also feels like a step back, and doing a little research, I think this game had no budget, because in terms of the gore and the kill animations, there's like barely anything. The animations look worse. The voice acting is worse than 3, which 3 wasn't that great, but it's worse here. The narrative, it's more of a narrative focus compared to 3. 3 had narrative, but you know, you didn't really have to pay attention to it too much. This one you have to, or at least you should, because it kind of explains, like, the missions follow an order, so like it's telling you a story. I didn't really care for the narrative. The game is more grounded in the, you know, in the feudal time period, which is good because there's no like magic stuff or anything like that. But at the same time, they don't really use the time period the best, because it gets very repetitive, very samey. Even for a short game like this, it just feels like they don't really use a lot. I think in one level you're in a cave, but then for the rest it's basically the same. It almost feels like you're in the same place. Not much difference. And like I said, you can just bum rush through a lot of these missions. It's incredibly hard to get the top rank. It expects you to be basically nearly perfect. If you get caught once, you might as well just restart the mission, because there's no point. And like I said, the characters just feel way too similar, which really kills me. And they took out the versus mode. That is what makes me think there probably was no budget in this game. They were like, oh shoot, let's just get rid of it. There's no secret characters to get, at least that I could find. This just feels like a step down from Wrath of Heaven, and honestly just feels like a lower budget game. So even though it does look slightly better, a lot of the issues from the Tenchu games still lie here, like in terms of the AI issues and all that stuff. It's by this time you would think it's improved, but not really. And it seems like I really hate this game, and I kind of do in a way. Like, I don't hate it in terms of, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I won't put it in the thug theory, because I think thug tier, because it's not horrible. Like, I did play it to completion, so there you go. But by the end of it, and it's not that long of a game, just kind of felt underwhelming, at least compared to Wrath of Heaven. Like I said, Wrath of Heaven, the end of it wasn't that great either, but I still enjoyed like the diversity between Rikimaru and Ayame, and then the third character too. This only has 2 characters. They feel very similar, and there's just not a lot of reason to go back to the missions. I've grandmastered a few of them, but honestly, by the end, I was just getting a lot of thugs, because I just really just wanted to beat the game. it's like I said, just not that enjoyable. And yeah, I feel like I just talked about this way too much. Let's move on. All right, and the next one is Tenchu Z. This one came out for the 360, and this one was developed by published by From Software. I think developed by K2, but published by From Software. So this is a very interesting title that we have here, because it was the first title where you get to create your own ninja, which sounded awesome. You get to create the ninja, you get to buy different clothing, you get to, you know, participate in missions. There was also co-op online only, which I wish it was local. The fact it's online only really ruins its appeal, because honestly it would have been fun to just have my friends over and we just play split screen, similar to what you can do in freaking Wrath of Heaven. So it's obviously possible, but the side issue. Ricky Morrow's in the game, but that's really, and I think Lord Goda too, which is the one who gives you these missions. But that's it. Ayami's not there, and I don't even think she's mentioned. She may be mentioned one time, but I don't recall. And this is easily the longest and the most content-filled Tenchu game to date. Now, when this was released, it was critically panned, and I guess I get why in a way. Graphically, it wasn't the greatest thing. Honestly, the 7th gen of consoles, the 7th gen just was so graphics everything. If a game looked ugly, despite how great the game could have been, it would have got flagged because it looks terrible. Like, it was annoying as hell. Every game had to look like AAA quality or it would get flamed. Every time. It was so stupid. Nowadays, it's more about the gameplay, and you know, I appreciate that. You know, it's not all about spectacle, though there are still some review sites who are stupid, but that's again side issue. I'm getting sidetracked. Let's focus. So I would say there was some things. There was also some things that I get what people don't like. The AI was still not really all that improved, even though they gave the ability to smell, which sounds great on paper. Like, oh, if you get into a fight, like if you get caught, you get into a fight, or you step in something that smells, then the AI can smell you instead of just see you, so they'll know that you're getting close by your smell. That was a good idea, and I think it's executed well enough. The problem is it doesn't happen enough, because you're rarely ever going to get caught, and if you do, you can just go in a place and just hang out and chill for a little bit to get the smell off, and then just get back on your merry way, or just jump into a lake, wash yourself off, jump back up, and you're as good as new. So there's so many ways to avoid it. There's also the fact that the game is just way too easy. Tenchu has always been a challenging game, sometimes unfair, like in the first two, just because of the draw distance, especially the first game being so bad draw distance. It was almost impossible to really like tell. Like, you just run, all of a sudden a guard's right there. And this was a little too easy. I haven't completed it 100%, but it's definitely been the Tenchu I've put the most time in. It's just really because, like I said, it just takes so long, and the cool thing is you can customize your ninja as you go through the game. You can spend points to make them faster, either stronger or give them more health, and I just put it all in speed to make it the fastest ninja possible. And overall, I mean, I do enjoy some of the nice touches, like you can fight sheath or unsheath something that was in the second game, but they brought back for this one, which is kind of cool. You can grab a character, unsheath, drag him somewhere, and then just kill him with your weapon, or lay him down, snap him with your neck. You can also do environmental kills, which I don't know how to pull off, so I need to look that up. And there's not much of a story. It's mainly just a bunch of random missions. But I think what also kills this game long term, and why I haven't gone through all the missions, which there's like 50 of them, the reason why I haven't is because they're all very similar. There's also some boss fights too, and what I like about this game is they tone down the boss fights considerably, which I appreciate because they suck, and they suck in this game too. But back to what I was saying. So with the missions, you'll notice very quickly they all take, like, you'll see like a new place, and then all of a sudden you'll start seeing like the same place, and you're like, wasn't I here before? So it feels very similar. It's almost like for the older games, when you would replay the missions and it would just be different layouts, it's the same thing. It just feels like you're playing the same missions, just like with 20 different layouts per level. So it definitely gets repetitive very quickly that way. So it just, and most of the missions are pretty much the same. Go here, assassinate this character, and there's a lot of cool ways you can pull it off. I do like the different approaches. You have, of course, your trusty grappling hook and all the items that from the previous game, but you also have, you can hug the walls and kill enemies that way. Doesn't execute the best, but there's different ways to handle situations, which I appreciate that, but like I said, it makes it a little too easy, because the AI just wasn't improved or really made to react better to your new tactics. So it is what it is. Although I still enjoy it, the music isn't as good either, but I honestly still enjoy it. And I feel like I'm already gonna get killed because, like, I put Tenchu 2 over Tenchu 1, and like Tenchu 1 is supposed to be sacred, so I'm gonna stoke the flames a little bit more. I'm gonna put this in Master Ninja, and I'll be looking forward to that comment section, because I'm definitely thinking that I'm going to see a lot. But that is what happens when you make a tier list. These are the risks you take, and you have to accept them. So I hope you guys enjoyed my look at Tenchu. I really hope that a new Tenchu game is made. I love Tenchu, and it's a shame reading into Shadows Die Twice that it was supposed to be, Sekiro game was supposed to be a Tenchu game. That would have been awesome, but it would be cool to see Rikimaru and Ayami in new graphics. I mean, it's the 9th gen right now. So it'd be cool to see him in 9th gen graphics for the PS5, Steam. Tenchu on Steam would be amazing. If they honestly, if they re-release like the trilogy or did like a remaster, a remake or something, I'd look forward to that. I think it'd be pretty awesome. A lot of people would look forward to that, and a lot of people clamoring for that. I mean, it seems like a lot of these From Software titles lately, especially when looking at my Armored Core video and how well that has been doing, it seems like a lot of people are clamoring for these, these games. As much as I love the Souls series, the Souls likes, the Bloodborns, whatever, Neo 2, I know that's not by them, but you get my point. I would love for From Software to take a step back and return back to their back catalog in a way. Let's see another Armored Core here. Let's see another Tenchu. I would love for these games to return. But this is the state we're in. Hopefully they make a Tenchu or someone takes the license, because I keep reading that there is interest for it, but someone just has to put in the money and someone just has to pull in the trigger, and we'll see it made. Other than that, thank you guys for watching as always. Hope you stay safe, stay cool, because it's getting hot over here. And this is Powerhouse signing off.